Who do you barrack for, the hunter or the prey? The leopard or the gazelle? The frog or the snake? The fly or the flytrap? Enter the glittering and sensual world of plants with a thirst for blood. The big bee-looking fly is the prey, and that little bug is going to help the plant digest it. Homicidal greenery. This hanging swamp is home to thousands of carnivorous plants. The hanging swamps of the Blue Mountains waterfalls plunge off cliffs so high, with winds so gusty, that the water rarely hits the ground. Lining the rock face is the most impressive display of carnivorous Drosera binata in the world. At any given moment there are hundreds of thousands, or more, insects drowning on this cliff face. They are being consumed alive in their very own hellish little shop of horrors by this waving ocean of Drosera binata. Bright, sparkling, green lines streak across the precipice, formed from thousands of the Drosera's V-shaped leaves. Each is covered in filaments that glint in the sunlight. It is not a leopard stalking a crocodile, pouncing, rolling, biting and overcoming its prey. But it is just as dramatic. It is a cliff face of plants with a thirst for blood. The glistening, sticky droplets are what gives these plants the common name, sundews. Murderous plants. When Greg Burke finished school, he went off to become an electrician. He spent years working that trade, rising up the ranks through telecommunications and traveling much of the continent. But plants were always his thing. Even when he was working on installations at remote sites, he would find time to wander the surrounding tracks, closely examining the ground for minuscule herbaceous plants. Greg Burke is one of a small group of intrepid explorers who study the world's carnivorous plants. Bushwalking with my parents at 4-5 years old near my home in the Sutherland Shire, I'd see sundews in the wild, and I used to go back to these little red glistening sundews on the forest floor every time, and think these things are amazing, Mr. Burke said. The bigger, more vicious, carnivorous plants, the pitcher plants of Borneo, the North American pitcher plants, the real killers of the jungle, that really captured my imagination. I've grown vegetables and flowers and bonsai, all these other things, but carnivorous plants were just something else. His love for these killer plants convinced him to hang up his electrician's tool belt. He is now curator of the Blue Mountains Botanic Gardens at Mount Tomah, just west of Sydney. The more the insect prey struggles, the more trapped it becomes. He is also one of the authors behind an encyclopedic book series called Drosera of the World, listing the knowledge to date of the broad family of plants commonly called sundews. Carnivorous plants cover close to 97% of the continent, Mr. Burke said. We've got the most diverse range of carnivorous plants on the planet, close to 240 species. We have so many sundews in Australia because the fertility of our soil has been leached out over millions of years. To get around the lack of fertilizer, these plants have developed a survival system. They murder insects and compost their bodies. Glittering killer. These West Australian Drosera purpurescens put on a show with their hot pink clusters. Though they vary wildly in shape, Drosera leaves can often look like undersea creatures, with tiny stalks coming off the main surface, protruding into the atmosphere. These matchstick shapes can be all different colors and lengths, even on the same plant, like meaty tentacles on an anemone. Drosera's sticky tentacles trap insect prey. The common name, sundew, for Drosera is derived from the effect of sunlight refracting through the glistening droplets of digestive enzymes on the plant's tentacles, Mr. Burke says. They have this fantastic sticky substance on them that captures a prey item when it touches the plant, he said. As the insect struggles and flails to try to free itself, it inadvertently makes contact with other glands and becomes increasingly incapacitated. On top of that, many sundews can move to embrace their prey in a moist grip of deathly goo. In fact, their lethal speed can be faster than a cheetah at full gallop. One Australian species might just be the fastest moving plant in the world. Drosera glanduligera moves so rapidly it's faster than the eye can see. It's a couple of hundredths of a second, Mr. Burke said, and an ant or prey will walk on that gland and the gland will actually flick the prey item into the center of the leaf. There is no escape death by drowning. A moth falls victim to Drosera sticky tendrils. The insect will often be overcome by the quantity of mucilage that is smothering it, and it will actually drown, Mr. Burke said.